What's up, guys? I know it's late, or it's late for me. It might not be late by the time you're watching this, but we need to cover this. Pretty much, Trump's bill got passed. The BBB covered it. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm seeing he didn't realize this bill would strip Medicaid. Let's check it out.
Mr. Speaker, I found the preamble to this big, ugly bill. We, the billionaires, and our king, in order to deform and sicken our union, establish injustice, ensure domestic servility, weaken our people's defenses, undermine the general welfare, and reserve to ourselves and our posterity staggering debt servitude for eternity, do hereby instruct the Republicans in Congress to strip 17 million people of their health care, increase co-pays, deductibles, and premiums for everyone else.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, delivered what he said should be the preamble to that bill, currently working its way through Congress. He's a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, and he joins me now. Congressman, let me just first start by your understanding of where things do stand with this bill.
It's up in the air. We've been sent home for the night. There are at least three groups of Republicans who are acting very recalcitrant and evasive. One are those who are saying that this is an absolute debt exploder, and they spend all their time talking about reducing deficits and debt, and this will add $3.5 or $4 trillion to the debt. A second group is those who are really afraid, if not for moral reasons, then at least political reasons, of what it means to throw 17 million people off of Medicaid and 42 million people off of nutrition assistance. So they might be afraid for their election, or they might be having some pang of conscience about it. And the third are those who learned from the Senate that they should hold out and try to shake Trump down for whatever it is they can extract for themselves or their particular political groupings or their district. So that's what's creating this long holdup. The shocking thing is they allocated only 1 hour of debate, 30 minutes on each side, to this entire bill, which will be absolutely life-changing for basically everybody in America. 1 hour of debate, and then they've kept us waiting around for 6, 7, 8 hours. We could have been debating the bill and talking about its provisions, but they would prefer to just have everybody, wandering around in the dark and eating bad pizza all night.
There was this exchange that happened today reported by the outlet Notice, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it because it, to me, kind of epitomizes everything about where we are. According to three sources with direct knowledge of the comments, this is Trump meeting with the holdouts. The president told Republicans at this meeting, there are three things Congress shouldn't touch if they want to win elections: Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. But we're touching Medicaid in this bill. One member responded to Trump, according to the three sources. We don't know what Trump said back. What do you make of that?
Well, there's a lot of discussion on the floor about whether or not Trump really understands what's in this bill or not, and whether he's out of it. And the extraordinary thing about that is that, of course, all of these people have gotten in line despite their own misgivings because Trump is leading the way, but Trump might not even understand what's in the bill. So it's a very dangerous moment when you think about what democracy is, and it doesn't speak well for what has become of the Republican Party. Now, some people think that, it's just Trump's devilishly clever politics where he's already distancing himself from a bill that he knows will be a nightmare, and then he'll blame it on somebody else for not having told him what was really in there. We don't know. But the point is that we should, as a society, be able to step back from this and say, look, if it's a great bill, let's take 2 weeks and explain to everybody how great it is. And if it's a terrible bill, let's get rid of it and let's start all over again.
Yeah, and I mean, my read on this is that he doesn't really care that much one way or the other, and certainly doesn't care enough to spend the time to understand, like, the distributional consequences of the Medicaid provisions. Like, there's no way that if you sat him down, he could talk you through what's happening here. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, part of what's so weird to me is we had, the first few months of his administration and Elon Musk with his chainsaw at Doge, and Russ Vought at OMB, who basically have staked themselves on the constitutional principle that spending decisions for Congress are simple advice. They're sort of suggestions. And then the executive can do with them what they want. And it's very weird to be legislating under those circumstances to me. Like, all this ICE money, right? Like, presumably some future Democratic administration could be like, no, we're not spending it. Like, it doesn't seem to have ultimately sunk into Congress that they have allowed so much power to accrete to Trump and the executive.
Well, the Democrats understand it because, of course, what he's doing is sabotaging all of the legislation that we've either gotten passed with President Biden or that we've fought for some kind of compromise with the Republicans. And he thinks he's got the power just to impound it, thwart it, redirect it. And it's an absolute violation of Congress's powers under the spending clause under Article 1 of the Constitution. And it is scandalous that the Republicans won't stand up for that at all. They act like our power is purely advisory, like we're a recommendation panel for what should happen. And so we know that the district courts and the appeals courts have been standing with us on this question. And we hope that, Thomas and Alito are not able to pull the rest of the court over to this monarchical understanding of Article 2 of the Constitution, that somehow the president can do whatever he wants. I mean, the president's core job is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, not thwarted and rewritten and not impounded. An Appropriations Act, Chris, as you know, is a federal law, just like the law saying you cannot assault a federal officer. You can't violate an Appropriations Act and just decide you're going to use the money for a different purpose.
Do you think the political consequences will show up for your members of the House who vote for this bill, particularly those, say, the ones in the swing districts, the ones like Derek Van Orden in Wisconsin, who's got a lot of Medicaid recipients and rural hospitals in his district?
Yes, because the pain will start to be felt immediately as millions of people are thrown off of Medicaid, off Medicare in different ways, the Affordable Care Act, and as people lose their SNAP benefits. And what is it for? They can't say it's for deficit reduction or debt reduction. They're adding trillions of dollars to the debt. It's all to give money to the very richest people in the society who run the Republican Party, and they will continue this authoritarian program. I mean, authoritarianism is always involved in class war of the rich against the rest of society.
Yeah.
And so they're acting out this drama.
Hey, they're hitting a lot of good points right there. I'm not gonna lie. It's questionable with the Medicare Act. I'm not too sure how. What's this? Paramount sued Trump?
Tonight, a $16 million settlement. Paramount, the parent company of CBS, announcing it will pay President Trump's legal fees and give money to his future presidential library.
Whoa.
The president sued CBS over this interview with Vice President Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes during last year's presidential campaign.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
The suit accusing the show of manipulating the editing in Harris's favor, a claim CBS News denied. In June, 60 Minutes anchor Scott Pelley was asked what effect a settlement and apology would have.
Will be very damaging to CBS, to Paramount, to the reputation of those companies.
Paramount is not issuing an apology, but says it has agreed to release written transcripts of future 60 Minutes interviews with presidential candidates. The Trump legal team calling the settlement another win for the American people, holding the media accountable for their wrongdoing and deceit. The announcement comes as Paramount is looking to merge with Skydance Media, a deal worth $8 billion. It has been stuck, waiting for FCC approval for nearly a year. Paramount previously saying the lawsuit...
That's super good for Trump. That's super good for Trump. That's tons of money. That's some good news. You know what I'm saying? Yes. NBC, let's see what you have to say.
Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kelly O'Donnell in Washington, where it's all hands on deck as the president and House Speaker Mike Johnson try to deliver the votes to get his signature domestic legislation passed. Right now, action on the House floor is stalled. We are still waiting on this current vote to get to another vote to tee up the big vote on final passage. Bottom line.
Wow. That's a close vote, dude. Every vote that we've seen on this channel has been this close. At the tally, 213 to 212. Wow.
Here, the delay suggests leadership does not think it has enough support to pass the bill right now. It comes after a day of furious behind-the-scenes negotiations, with President Trump meeting with multiple Republican coalitions, from deficit hawk conservatives in the House Freedom Caucus to the more centrist members who are concerned about the bill's steep cuts to Medicaid. Publicly, the president took to social media to urge the bill's passage, saying extending the tax cuts and reduced spending would lead to a, quote, economic renaissance. Speaker Johnson also touted the bill as he huddled with Republican holdouts. Here's some of what he told reporters today about his message to the Republicans on the fence.
When you have a piece of legislation that is this comprehensive and with so many agenda items involved, you're going to have lots of different priorities and preferences among people because they represent different districts and they have different interests. But we can't make everyone 100% happy. It's impossible. This is a deliberative body. It's a legislative process. By definition, all of us have to give up on our personal preferences. I never got to ask anybody to compromise core principles, but preferences must be yielded for the greater good.
House Democrats, meanwhile, came out in a show of unity against the president's mega bill, holding a press conference on the steps of the Capitol, highlighting the potential impact of the bill, which the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates would lead to nearly 12 million Americans losing their health insurance.
Every single House Democrat will vote hell no against this one big, ugly bill. Hospitals will close. Nursing homes will shut down. Community-based clinics won't have the ability to operate. And as a result, people are going to die connected to this one big, ugly bill. Tens of thousands of unnecessary American deaths per year. Shame on Republicans for even bringing this bill.
Democratic leaders also taking aim at vulnerable Republicans in competitive districts, calling them out by name.
Why would Scott Perry vote for this bill? Almost 25,000 people in his community will lose access to health care. In his community in Pennsylvania, almost 40,000 households would lose access to nutritional assistance. They're at risk of going hungry. Why would Scott Perry vote for this bill?
Why would David Valadao vote for this bill? Over 65,000 people in his district will lose access to health care if this passes. 60,000 households will lose access to their food assistance. Why would young Kim in California 40 vote for this bill either? Over 31,000 people in her communities will lose their health care, and 15,000 households could lose access to food assistance.
Speaker Johnson can only afford 3 GOP defections. That's if the entire House votes, with Congressman Massey of Kentucky already a declared no. And joining me now is NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona and NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Mel, let's start with you. What is the state of play this afternoon, and could we see a final vote today?
That is a great question, Kelly. The House is at a standstill right now. The GOP leadership was attempting to move through some key procedural votes in order to get on to final passage of the big, beautiful bill, as Trump likes to call it. But they have held that vote open for over an hour, and they even started to send members back to their offices because they don't have the votes at this very moment. And there's a couple of issues at play here. Number one, there's an attendance issue. Remember, lawmakers were being dragged back from their districts. They were all throughout the country, back home for the holiday with their families, doing constituent events. They weren't supposed to be here this week, and there was a number of severe weather events and flight cancellations that have really made it difficult for some members to get back. So we know of at least 2 Republicans who were expected to be reliable yes votes on this bill who have not been able to make it back to Washington, D.C. But we are hearing that they're expected to be here within the next hour or so. The bigger issue, though, Kelly, is that there is still a group of holdouts, mostly conservative hardliners, who still are not quite there yet on this bill. They've been meeting over the last 3 hours. They were at the White House meeting with President Trump, and they've also been meeting with Speaker Johnson in a room right outside the House floor, trying to get to yes. So that's where we're at right now. It is a stalemate. There is still a lot of optimism and hope that they can get there today, but there's still going to be a lot of arm twisting and a lot more work to do before they can get to yes here.
And the getting to yes is one of the longest journeys in Washington when these big bills are in front of lawmakers, and it's a difficult choice. Do you think that the talks today have given any signals that they've been productive?
There have been some positive signs. I've also spoken to some moderates who had some concerns over Medicaid cuts. Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey being one of them. He has been really on the fence about this bill. He said today he is leaning strongly yes. So that's a positive sign. And then even the conservative hardliners have said that they want to get to yes, that they're having some productive conversations, that there's a few more things that they need to work out behind the scenes. The question here, though, is what can they be given, or what can leadership and Trump assure them of short of changing this bill? Because the trick here is that GOP leadership does not want to, nor can they, change the House bill, or else they would have to move it back to the Senate. So that would really delay their entire timeline. So there's a number of conversations going on behind the scenes. We'll see just how effective those are, though. We should have a better sense in the next couple of hours or so.
And Monica, let me turn to you now. And of course, the president has a lot on the line here. He's been involved in conversations. What are you learning about how that has gone and some of the direct diplomacy or perhaps arm twisting that he's been engaged in?
Yeah, a lot on the line, Kelly, but nothing on the public schedule, and that is by design so that he can have these private meetings behind closed doors with these lawmakers. We know he was meeting with House Freedom Caucus members, and then he was also meeting with some more moderate Republicans. So you had both the hardliners and the moderates that he was having these group meetings with, where he is trying to both apply some political pressure. The president has been pretty open about what he says will be severe consequences for Republicans who don't get in line and vote for this bill. So maybe a little bit of that, in addition to here's how he views this being sold to their constituencies. He's been trying to talk about this as an issue of economic growth and trying to make this idea that investing in his top priorities like border security and in the military, that those are positives. But at the same time, this is a White House and an administration that knows that it's those final votes that are going to be critical, and that there will likely have to be some give and take. So the president is trying to have those conversations again in private, knowing that the battle is spilling out in public. Kelly.
And the president likes to say flexibility is a tool for him. So would that suggest that he could live with this going beyond the July 4th deadline that he set?
It seems like he is okay with that deadline sliding if it means that more time will get them to final passage. Yesterday, he sort of indicated that was the case. He said, I'd love to have it by Friday, by the 4th of July, where he's having a big celebration at the White House for the holiday and where he wanted to tout again some of these agenda items and priorities. But that if it had to slide a little bit, it was okay, because this was an imposed deadline of his own making. But he does fashion himself the deal maker in chief. And I think, according to some White House officials I was talking to earlier, they still think this is possible, even though it is getting really down to the wire, to be turned in the next 48 hours or so.
Well, deadlines often move people in Washington as well, so let's see how that goes. And Mel, if we look at this, can we jump beyond the vote itself? And are you finding that Republicans are weighing the potential impact on the midterm elections, which of course seems like a lifetime from now? But is that playing into some of these conversations?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is definitely something that is weighing heavily on the minds of Republicans. In fact, and we had reported this in the Senate debate, there were a number of Republicans who behind closed doors were warning if changes aren't made to this bill, that these members are worried they're going to lose their seats. One member even likened it to the debate in 2017 when Republicans tried and failed to repeal and replace Obamacare. But even just the threat of taking away people's health care was something that cost Republicans in a big, big way in the following midterm election. Now, I've been asking the GOP leadership about these concerns. They're really brushing them aside. They are confident that there's going to be enough in this bill that people like. They're going to have to get out on the road and sell it, though. And they have a huge messaging challenge ahead of them, because the centerpiece of this bill is this extension of the 2017 tax cuts that's really just an extension of the status quo. These Medicaid cuts, people are going to feel those. And there's a lot of moderates in these really tough purple battlegrounds who have a lot of constituents who rely on Medicaid. No doubt Democrats see this as their centerpiece of what they're going to focus on in the 2026 midterms. Republicans feel so too. We'll see actually who's going to be right here, but that remains to be seen.
We know you will both be tracking this for us. We'll check back with you if anything changes. So thanks for being at your posts. Appreciate that very much. And now let me welcome our guest here. Delighted to have you. Joining me is North Carolina Republican Greg Murphy, who is certainly a part of the Ways and Means Committee, is also one of those people who has to make a decision here. And so thank you for being here and coming from across the street to join us. Notably, you told Punchbowl News today that you were having a hard time getting to the point where you could be a yes for this package. And that makes me wonder, does that mean you're a no?
Well, Kelly, I think you have to frame things. I've been a physician that's worked in rural eastern North Carolina now for over 30 years. I actually saw Medicaid patients yesterday. So I've seen it. I see it on the ground of what's going to happen. We have a system that's broken. We had an enrollment during the last administration where the CMS director, her job was to enroll as many people on Medicaid, whether they were eligible or not. You have government programs that are for the most distressed. Medicaid is supposed to be for impoverished children, pregnant women, disabled, disabilities.
Yes.
These are the program it's supposed to be for. It's not supposed to be everything for everybody. What we want individuals is to be able who can work to go out and get insurance from their companies. That's really the best. We also had a system that has happened with this provider tax, which is in the 80s, that has turned into this massive rebate program from the federal government, drawing down more dollars. When I was in the General Assembly in North Carolina, they talk about how well we did this. We can pull more dollars down from the federal government. That's why we're at $37 trillion in debt. This is threading a difficult needle. I've been on the phone nonstop for the last 96 hours, talking with hospital presidents, talking with other individuals, HHS members from North Carolina. How do we thread this needle? The good part here is that Senator Murkowski was able to get a $50 billion rural fund in there. The devil is going to be in the details.
You have questions, though, right, on how that would be dispersed and who would qualify?
Sure.
Are you getting any assurances that you think are enough to result in a vote?
Well, I have good relations with lots of folks across the state of North Carolina. What this has to be funded for is we don't need systems that just get money just because they have Medicaid patients. I'm in a district in eastern North Carolina where if you took the 29 counties that we serve, if you made them in a state, we'd be one of the poorest in the country. Then you have other places in Charlotte. While they may still have the same number of Medicaid patients, they have a lot more insured patients, which actually pay the bills. We have to find a system working with our state government that puts that money where it needs to be.
So are you seeing patients in the last few weeks, perhaps, who would in fact lose their insurance?
Well, you see, this is a misnomer by Democrats because they're talking about people losing insurance. These are people who should not be on Medicaid to begin with.
I understand that argument, that you say they wouldn't qualify under new rules or rules.
No, they don't qualify under old
present rules. So that leads me to believe that they would, in fact, lose their insurance.
Well, they shouldn't have had Medicaid to begin with. And so this is, again, we have programs. You know, I'm not a veteran. Does this mean I qualify for veterans benefits? No, it shouldn't be that way. And so let's get government back to what it's supposed to be doing for the people who need it.
So that sounds like a yes to me. Have you made a decision?
I've not made a decision yet.
And what will it take to finalize the
I hope to talk to the president this afternoon because I want to tell the story of eastern North Carolina, the system where I've worked for 30 years, how it will affect it, and how do we navigate our way out of this with this other fund.
One of the things that struck me is Senator Tillis, the senior senator from your state, had raised the issue of, is the president getting all the best information about what is happening on the ground level and what would happen to this? As reporters, when we've talked to the president, he says no one is losing their benefits, just waste, fraud, and abuse. It sounds like there's somewhere in between in what you're saying. So what do you think the president needs to understand, and do you expect him to be open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, our president cares about this country. He really, I mean, honestly, I wish people and Democrats would see how much this president cares about this country. He wants to know things, but he also understands we are careening towards a financial cliff that will literally destroy this country. We cannot do business as usual. Yes, is part of this Medicaid, is part of this other programs? Absolutely. I think he does care about the average American and where we are in trying to deal with these issues.
One of the things I'd like to do is get a sense from you about what Senator Tillis did say on the floor. I believe we have that clip. If we could just look at that, it would refresh our memories here about what he says is likely to be a result of this bill in your state.
Yeah.
Let's play that.
So what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years? when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there. Republicans are about to make a mistake on health care and betraying a promise. It is inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise that Donald J. Trump made.
Do you see it as a betrayal, sir?
Well, I think you have to look at a full equation here. And look, I get along great with Tom Tillis. I think he's a patriot that cares a lot about his country. I don't agree with all of his calculations, though. You have to look at what happens with other payments that go. Medicare Advantage, for example, is a fraudulent system within federal government as far as Medicare. There are a lot of reforms that we need to do that will plus up a lot of the systems of hospitals where they get money, which helps out with this tremendously.
We focused a lot on the Medicaid piece of this, but you also have concerns about the deficit. You were a guest on this program back in May, and I want to play something you said when you were with us then.
The most important thing I'm concerned about right now is the growth of our deficit. You know, bond markets across the world are saying, well, gosh, can the United States pay back its loan? Are they going to default on their debt? And if so, 1929 looks like a spring holiday. We cannot allow that to happen. We want pro-growth policies that allow companies to invest. And guess what? They employ more people, giving them meaningful work. But at the same time, we don't want to, grow on our deficit.
So you remember that.
Sure.
And of course, this measure, according to the CBO, is going to expand the deficit by as much as $3 trillion. Yeah. I know there are some criticisms of the CBO, but how do you square that?
Yeah, look, I would love to be able, I'm a scientist by nature. This is a surgeon. I'm sorry, I take things for fact. The CBO is right often as they are wrong. That said, you can't look at the deficit just as a single number. We have to look at the delta between the growth and the GDP ratio between our debt. If we can grow this economy greater, the CBO estimated our growth to be a paltry 1.8%. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. We grow the delta between our GDP and the debt, we're not going to be able to pay back our debt.
But there's a leap of faith in that as well.
Yeah, but it's also a very, very educated guess on pro-growth policies that are put forth in the other parts of this bill that we can get there. And by the way, when we do that, we employ people. We give them jobs. We give them self-esteem. Most of all, we give them health insurance, things that a Medicaid doesn't need to be supplying.
When we look at the political picture of what all of this may mean on the campaign trail, we've seen how Tom Tillis and Don Bacon have both decided to step away after they've been targeted by the president or disagree with the president, don't feel they want to engage politically anymore. Do you think this is something that will have an impact on your party, and does it affect how you feel about your own vote?
Well, I tried, honestly, I don't have to do this job. I can go back and be a lowly surgeon. I still love being a physician. That's who I am, more importantly. I really, truly, truly try not to make politics as part of my decision. I know some other members have to do that. We're here to do the right thing for the right reason. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you have to hold your nose and vote for things that you don't want, to look at the bigger picture. I don't know if Tillis this was just the last straw on him deciding not to come. I don't know what Don Bacon's issue was. We have to do the right thing for the American people, because sometimes it's difficult to take bad medicine that you don't like tasting to make yourself better. The nation does not understand how we are as a nation as far as our finances. They don't have a clue. It's beautiful outside. People are driving, getting ready for a holiday. We are careening towards a fiscal cliff. We have to do something about that, and hard and difficult decisions must be made.
I hope we can touch base with you after you have your chat with the president and see where you land on this, because obviously the speaker and the country, everybody's waiting for a vote like yours.
Great.
Thank you,
Kelly.
sir. Appreciate your time.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or...
So, yeah, good information for our little update. Pretty much, he really wants to get that bill done by July 4th. He's pushing as hard as he can. If I'm not mistaken, they're doing pretty good. The House is still debating on it. The Senate has already passed it. We shall see in the next couple of days if the bill gets passed. There's a lot of things that it could change. Definitely going to be some unhappy people, but I feel like there's unhappy people in any decision that gets made. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that Paramount thing was crazy, huh? Let me see this. 10 years ago, he did the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. There's no way.
I've been called out by everybody for the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
No way.
Homer Simpson, Mike Tyson, Vince McMahon, like everybody's going crazy over this thing. I guess they want to see whether or not it's my real hair, which it is. So here's what I'm going to do. Miss Universe and Miss USA, I own it. They're here. They're going to really do a number on me. I'm challenging President Obama, my son Donald, my son Eric. Let's go, ladies.
At the top of Trump Tower. This is real hair.
What a mess.
Wow. Well, what a good way to end the stream, guys. I hope you enjoyed the updates for today. And subscribe if you did. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.